The legislators themselves are human beings, so they don't have the brain power, the bandwidth in some cases, right, to do due diligence, to take the pain. This process can be painstaking, quite frankly, all right, to do the needful, all right, cross their T's, dot their I's, and just ensure that the needful is done every step of the way. So most of these ministries, departments, and agencies get away with this kind of mediocre practices, and then the next year the cycle continues, the next year and the next year and the year after that. But it will appear from the little evidence we've seen in the last couple of weeks, for example, that there are people now bringing some shift to the narrative to say, look, we can't continue this kind of system. We must learn to be fiscally responsible. We must understand that whatever money we have, whether it's small or humongous, all right, is hard earned. Therefore, we can't just be throwing it away in the name of budgeting or budgeting. Look at the numbers this year for budget. I mean, the bottom line, we're doing 49 trillion just with a little fraction over it. It looks like a whole lot of money, but the question is, what are our needs at the national level for a country that wants to develop real quick, for a country that wants to industrialize, for a country that wants to diversify, for a country that wants to compete with the rest of the world, particularly with the so-called, as we know them, right, the 20 largest economies in the world, the Asian tigers, and so on and so forth. You see, when you say you're competing as a nation, on this level, for example, it's not so much about the rhetoric, it's not so much about the presentations you're doing, it's not so much about how much you talk about these things. It's about, first of all, the quality of conversation you're having. It's about, first of all, the priorities you're setting. It's about, first of all, whether you're putting your money where your mouth is. It's about, first of all, whether you're prioritizing your citizens. It's about, first of all, whether you understand the element of a human resource. It's about, first of all, understanding the place of education and making that critical investment in it. It's about understanding that health, above all, is an underlying factor that you cannot deny. I mean, look at hospitals today, for example. How much do we have budgeted for health in the 2025 budget? How about education, for example? These are conversations we'll be having in the weeks and months ahead. Of course, people will say, well, the budget is just a proposal. In real life, so to speak, it's a different kind of fish altogether. But you see, we've got to get it right from the ground up. If we miss it at the base, it's going to create problems for us in the near future, and that will have so much of boomerang effect for us. So as a country, we've got to go into 2025 with a different kind of thinking as a government, as public service ministries, departments, and agencies of government, so that we don't continue to buy cutlery and furniture and cars and computers and handkerchiefs every other year. Okay, so let's continue with the Daily Trust newspaper for you real quick. Okay, well, the big one, like I said, is 2025 budget. 20 MDAs to spend 14.3 billion naira on computers. But there are two riders with the headline. Justice Ministry strips vehicles to go 2 billion naira. Experts CSOs ask National Assembly to scrutinize proposals. But let's take things a notch higher now. Let's look at the headlines above this star headline here. It says tariff hike or service disruptions, telecom operators vow. So it has to be one of both. You can't have it both ways. All right, tariff hike or service disruptions, telecom operators vow. Let's just create a bit of a context here real quick, right? The telecommunications operators, I should say, have a very straightforward argument. And what is that? They say, look, operational costs is becoming overbearing, is becoming burdensome, all right, is overwhelming us as private entities, all right, which means that the cost of running our business now has never been this high. This is an all-time high for us, of course, for obvious reasons, given the economic reality we're dealing with as a country. Of course, the businesses too are having their own pinch every other day. So they're saying, in light of all of this, long and short, we need to have one of two things happen. Either we disrupt service, In other words, we have to stagger services in such a way that one man may not have service in the morning in his area. I mean, think about that for a second. And then the other guy the guy B has in the morning. Then by evening or maybe late afternoon stroke, evening or night as the case may be, the guy who have the entire morning now has, and the guy who had all through the morning no longer has, that kind of thing. We have to ration it in such a way that there's almost like a roster, that kind of thing. So imagine, for example, you knowing that tomorrow being, let's say today, knowing that you're going to have service till 3 p.m. today. So from 3 p.m. all the way till midnight, you won't have service. So what happens when you need to make critical calls, whether as a business or privately, or you need to use the internet for something that matters to you, whatever that may be? What do you do? However, the telecom operators are also saying that the alternative is we have to review tariff. Of course, it's upward. This is not downward, it's upward. But they don't have the latitude to do that unilaterally. So there must be a regulatory, if you like, assent to that. Of course, as we understand, the Nigerian Communications Commission regulates the telecoms guys in this country, the telecoms operators in the country. Of course, the NCC itself is an agency of the Ministry of Telecommunications and Digital Economy. So, in all of this, it means that the telecoms guys are saying that we are underburdened, we are overshadowed, we are, in PD parlance, as we say here, their neck is being pressed, that sort of thing. They can't breathe, to use the president's term. But the question is, can we afford to have service disruption? Because recall that anytime there is a technical problem with your service provider, it can be very traumatic. So imagine if that now becomes a structural problem where it is deliberately done just so we can keep these businesses afloat. It becomes more complicated. So should we go with a tariff hike or allow for service disruption while we maintain the tariffs as they are currently, the prevalent tariff structure? So those are the options we have in front of us. Let's see what the NCC will say in the days and weeks ahead, and let's see how we can continue to enjoy these services that we pay for with hard-earned money while we're still getting the best value from it. Okay, but let's move on now to see these headlines just beneath the nameplate here. One here talks about currency in circulation hits 4.8 trillion naira amidst cash squeeze. Currency in circulation hits 4.8 trillion naira amidst cash squeeze. That's still on the Daily Trust newspaper. So top right corner says 2024 malnutrition epidemics, malaria vaccinations shaped health sector. Of course, quite another outbreaks. Of course, we saw many of them. There was cholera, then Lassa fever. Again, read his head. At a point, we were even talking about polio here and there, and then we heard about measles in some part of the country. So it's been quite a mix of many health issues in this country. But Nigeria, for what it has always been, would end up surviving and winning against these odds. Yes, we are not out of the woods. Let's not lie to ourselves. But we have been able to surmount very well, and we continue to surmount going forward, because whether you like it or not, there are things that just cannot break us. All right. So we appreciate every man, every woman in the health sector. We don't do this every day, but who says we can't take 1 second to do that today? To say, look, we will not say it every other time, but we do appreciate the fact that we have people who go to work every day, nurses, doctors, laboratory scientists, and everyone who contributes one way, multiple days a week to the growth and sustenance of the health sector. Because as they say, health is wealth. But we're talking about the economy, we're talking about cash in circulation, we're talking about where we want to be as a country, agriculture, and what have you. If we are a country of sick people, from the president to the least person in this country, we will be having those conversations. But because we are largely healthy, we're able to stand on our feet, we have the energy, we have our brains functioning to have these conversations. Yes, of course, we can't also take away the fact that this year, the health sector, like we had seen in the last couple of years, has experienced its own Jackba syndrome. That is the brain drain, as we call it, in several other sectors. The health sector itself has arguably been the worst hits amongst these sectors. Of course, some people will say, well, it's the financial sector, but I know firsthand what it means for you to get into the A&E, that is the accident and emergency ward of a teaching hospital, and then you see a senior nurse complaining that the doctor on the shift at 10 p.m. was supposed to have closed at 4 p.m. And the question is, what had kept him that long? Well, there was no other person, so it was just a case of being between or stuck between the rock and a hard place. And the nurse says to everybody who was there, including myself, that look, everybody has done Jackba, all right? So these are the people you have here, and the pressure is crazy. We are just doing the much that we can in this situation under these circumstances. So we doff our hearts for everybody, top to bottom, end to end, who has shaped our health sector this year, including the Honorable Minister of Health and Social Development, Dr. Mohammed Pate, who has also been very phenomenal in the way that he has provided leadership these 1+ years that has been there. I remember when we spoke with him here in our studio at Global Television, one of the things he did say within that short interview was that their work is cut out for them based on the mandate that the president had given him to provide leadership for this all-important ministry. And I mean, with the little we know on account of following the efforts and the leadership that he has provided so far, I mean, it's commendable, and we hope that in the new year he and his team will do even far more for not just the Ministry of Health, but for Nigeria as a people. We're taking a quick break now. When we return, we'll look at a few more headlines for you from the Daily Trust newspaper, and then 4 more newspapers in the course of the program, just before the AM news, which will be at top of the hour. Let's take a look at the headlines at the foot of the front page of the Daily Trust today for you. Alright, here it says, Warri Refinery, that's a kicker. Marketers hint at further petrol price cuts. Of course, that's the relieving. Obviously, that's the kind of news Nigerians want to hear. Warri Refinery, marketers hint at further petrol price cuts. EFCC to freeze 91 accounts over alleged terrorism financing fraud. 7 die as hoodlums security operatives, I should say, clash in Anambra. No deal with Atiku Obi on power sharing. Kwankwaso, of course, the former governor of Kano State, had come out to say, look, there has never been a time I went into any power sharing deal with the likes of former Vice President Atiku Abubakar or former Anambra State Governor Mr. Peter Obi. But let's see, politicians can be very interesting. Some of the best actors in the world are probably politicians. So as we inch closer to 2027, I mean, there's no way between the middle and end of 2026, all of these things will not come to the fore. We will know who is aligning, who is realigning with whom, why, and how. All right. Okay, so that's all we're bringing from the Daily Trust newspaper for you this morning. Let's see what the Nation newspaper also has. Then we're going to begin with the headlines above the nameplate of the Nation newspaper. Top left corner first, it says editorial advisor Dari lauds the Nation. Government targets 3 million barrels per day oil production, says Lukbobiri. Heineken Lukbobiri, by the way, Senator Heineken Lukbobiri is the Honorable Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Oil. Alright, is the one saying that the target of the government is 3 million barrels per day production outputs. It sounds quite ambitious, because before now we're doing something in the neighborhood of 2.2 million barrels per day, but now we're shooting all the way up to 3 million. So hopefully he gets all the support and all of the critical stakeholders through their weight behind this ambition, and then government is able to drive it with sincerity of purpose, or able to also fight against vandalism oil theft of all kinds, bunkering, and all the criminal elements that we have within the O&G sector, top to bottom, end to end. When we do that, as they say, this can will be a starting point. All right. Top right corner of the front page on the Nation newspaper this morning, the headline says, Presidency slams Bauchi governors' divisive rhetoric on tax reforms. FUBARA presents 1.19 trillion naira estimate to Oko Jumbo-led assembly. Some people have said, well, how do you present it to a 5-member assembly? That case for a long time has been a subject of litigation, but let's again see what the outcome and reactions to this budget presentation will be. Nigeria's economy requires shift from oil, says House Speaker Abbas. Yes, Global Television brought you that story yesterday, where the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Right Honorable Tajuddin Abbas, was talking about how that there's no better time for us to diversify the economy than now. But let's just wait a second and maybe take a quick look at this conversation around diversifying the economy, right? It's not the first time we've heard about this. It's not the first time we've talked about the need to diversify. I mean, recall that even in the days of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, we had talked about the need to diversify this economy. For example, in 2015, I spoke with an academic, an economist, who told me that, look, the issue is not about whether you want to diversify or not. It's not. There's nothing spectacular about you talking about diversifying. I mean, this was an interview I had with this academic when former President Muhammadu Buhari was just coming into office. That was even before he appointed ministers in November of that year, 2015. And he said the important thing is not about whether you diversify or not. It is about what model are you adopting. It's not enough to say you're diversifying. What are you diversifying from and into what? And what is the model? What are the short, medium, and long-term goals of that diversification? How will it help you compete favorably at the international markets? All right. What comparative advantage will it give to you? Those are the questions we need to answer, because it will appear everybody, especially those who are politically exposed, are busy talking about let's diversify. Who is sitting down? Who is staying up all night? Who is doing the hard work in such a way that we become a serious nation, a serious government, as serious people regarding the need to diversify? I am sure that's where we are right now as a country, and until we deal with these concerns, it will appear we have much more work to do than we readily realize. All right, let's see something more here. The Star headline says, production resumes with diesel kerosene at Warri Refinery. For those who are asking, what about PMS? That's Premium Motor Spirits, popularly called petrol. Well, let's start from here and see what happens next. Then on the front page of the Nation newspaper, you have a picture of Ogun State Governor Dapo Abiodun and Anthony Joshua, who, by the way, is from that state, presenting him the certificates there. You can read up that too when you pick up a copy of the Nation newspaper today. All right, what more do we have? It says petrol soon to follow at 125,000 barrels per day facility. Let's see. It's a remarkable way to end 2024, says Tinubu. Those are riders to the production resumes with diesel kerosene at Warri Refinery headline. So two riders here. Petrol to follow soon at 125,000 barrels per day facility. All right, and the president says that it's a remarkable way to end 2024, and I'm sure many Nigerians agree with President Tinubu on that. All right. Lastly, at the foot of the Nation newspaper this morning, it says here, Tinubu, Biden, Jinping, other world leaders pay tributes to Jimmy Carter. You can read up those tributes on page 7 when you pick up today's issue of the Nation newspaper. All right, let's move on to The Guardian. The Guardian's next paper this morning. Not very many headlines, but the big one they have here has Kika, Person of the Year 2024. Nigerians in diaspora from broken dreams to new global value chain. You'll find infographics, as is always the case with the Guardian, on the front page of the newspaper this morning. But let's bring it down a little. Higher education, more varsities or better quality? That's a conversation has been on for a long time. You know, at the point under former President Goodluck Jonathan, we had approved a bunch of federal universities, all right, from Lokoja to Northeast, all the way to Southwest and South-South, I mean, across the country. At that point, the discussion, the dialogue, the talk, all right, and debates around whether or not what we need is more universities or the quality of higher education to be improved. Or is it also possible, who knows, that we can have it both ways? I mean, we can use one stone to kill two birds. But what exactly is the reality? What are the challenges? Should we actually continue to establish universities, new universities, that is, of course, or tell ourselves, hold on a second, guys, why don't we invest more, all right, in the existing ones? Why don't we strengthen them in terms of the resources, critical resources that they need to operate? Why don't we focus more on how to produce higher quality students or graduates, I should say, who are not only having a bright future ahead of them, but are not going to end up being unemployable? Because recall that for several years, Nigeria is said to have over 50% of its graduates not being employable. So on the one hand, you're dealing with graduates who are not employed, not because they don't have capacity, not because they don't have competence, not because they are not promising, but simply because opportunities are limited for them. But then, on the other hand, and sadly so, you have other graduates who cannot be employed. Maybe we should say should not be employed because employers are not sure what value they can bring. So what do you do about that? How do you close that gap? How do you cut back, if not totally eradicate that? Shouldn't we focus more on these issues instead of establishing more universities? I mean, those are the debates in the public space right now. All right. But let's see something more here with a picture of Mele Kyari, the Group Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. It says Nigerians anticipates end to fuel imports as refining capacity surges. Of course, the same pidgin parlance, we're waiting day for Sokoto, day for Sokoto. So if we are able to ramp up production outputs, I mean, create a surge in that direction or on that front, for example, why do we need to import? Imports started because we couldn't produce or refine locally. But today, we see that changing real fast, and we hope this trajectory continues, is sustained, and is even improved on, so that we don't sit here talking about how to import finished petroleum products. All right. Regulator insists on cost-based study before planned telcos tariff hike. Regulator insists on cost-based study before planned telcos tariff hike. Of course, that's the NCC now saying that there must be a study of costs, yes, before we talk about increasing tariff. Let's understand, for example, the dynamics, the reality around costs, and then also figure out the reason we are doing or contemplating an upward review before we go ahead. Otherwise, we may just be getting ahead of ourselves and then end up shooting ourselves in the foot, right? We're taking a quick break, another quick break just before the AM news. But when we return, we'll look at two more papers for you, and up next will be the Global AM news. Politics NERC orders transfer of Ogun electricity oversight to Ogun Electricity Regulatory Commission. So states are beginning to have regulatory latitude now, if you like. So states are now allowed to regulate. We've seen that with Enugu and a few other states. So let's see what happens. I'm sure Abia is having the same, has been given the same free hand, so to speak, to regulate as well. Let's federate better. I'm sure those are some of the lessons we're learning now. Let's federate differently. If we say we are in federation, we should have federating states allowed to play their parts, and governors must be responsible. We can talk about that all day. Governors must be responsible in every sense of the word to run these subnationals as they should be run. All right, it's very important, right? Which also means that the federal government, which we are seeing, in fairness to the President Tinubu-led administration, is being done much better than we have seen previously, where we're now telling ourselves, look, if it has to be done by the local government as enshrined in the Constitution, as it should be the case in a federalism, in federalism, that's how it should be. If it has to be done by the subnationals, like the states in particular, that's how it should be. So there shouldn't be this back and forth, this fight, this tussle, these rifts, bad blood, whatsoever, between the states, the federal and the states, or the states and the local. Everybody's work should be cut out for them, and each entity should understand that without having to bring a fight of any kind, right? All right, Nigeria, the burden, the prospects in 2025. All right, retract inflammatory statement against Tinubu presidency, tells Bauchi governor. And then the writer says outburst does not represent North collective voice. The presidency is telling, of course, Governor Bala Mohammed had also said that, look, these tax reform bills do not serve the interest of Nigerians, particularly the North. But the presidency, on the other hand, is saying that whatever your opinions are, they don't represent the collective voice of those in the North. In other words, you're speaking for yourself, right? Okay, let's move on. It says Southwest Southeast Development Commissions free other regional agencies to spend 2.2 trillion naira in 2025. All right. What's more, we'll take it to the top right now, just before we're done with the Nigerian Tribune. It says telcos to commence service shedding if tariff is not increased. That's according to operators in that sector. All right, that's it for the Nigerian Tribune. Let's look at our very last paper this morning on the program, and that's the Punch newspaper. The big one here says, Warri Refinery marketers project price drop as production resumes. Radar tells us operators foresee stiffer competition among local refiners awaits Kaduna Refinery. Above the main plate, tax bills, PDP orders back Mohammed as presidency knocks governor. LG votes 53 billion naira for 103 foreign missions renovation. Tinubu should probe 436 deaths in accidental bombings. Well, the one that just happened in Sokoto State, you can say, is one of such bombings too many. All right. Wiki's camp protests as Fubara presents budget to 3-man assembly. Some people say it's a 5-man assembly, but now the Punch is reporting it as a 3-man assembly. Okay. Then on the right end of the front page of the Punch newspaper, it says Tinubu Obasanjo world leaders eulogize Carter. That's the late 39th president of the United States, Jimmy Carter. NLC OPS fear rising inflation over failed food policy. Insecurity, IPOB tackles Soludo, fourth governor on Kanu's release. Ogun mechanic jailed 6 years for stealing customer's car. What exactly was his plan? Was he going to drag it away, beyond Nigerian borders? Was he going to just be using it within the country? Was he going to sell it as a car as a whole, or was it going to maybe somehow cannibalize and sell its components? What exactly was the goal? But we hear the mechanic has now been arrested. All right, Ogun Ekiti, Osho, others signed 2025 appropriation bills. It will appear some of these governors have told themselves 2024 will not end until we have signed our budget. All right, that is a good thing. At least they wound up the year on that note. But let's also be clear: the cumulative value of the budgets, whether proposed as being presented to the states houses of assembly or the ones already signed now by the state governors, including Ogun, for example, comes to trillions of naira. Again, they are proposed. It's not like the money is somewhere stacked up. They are proposed. But by the time we're winding up 2025, to what extent would the lives of citizens across these different states have changed in a way that is measurable? What difference can we see in their life to say it was on account of not just the budget that was proposed, but in the manner in which whatever was released got implemented, and as such your life is better in these specific areas? We need to see that. Otherwise, what we're doing is not just budgeting, but it is a ritual that is useless to citizens. All right, let's do something useful with our time on the program this morning. We'll take a quick break. The next time we come back here live in the studio, it will be the Global AM News. Do stay with us, everyone.
welcome all viewers in Nigeria and around the world to Global AM News on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Anthony Momodu. A quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and free to air on Iconsat. President Bola Tinubu has consented to a proposal to establish a federal university in southern Kaduna. Vice President Kashim Shettima reviewed this during a condolence visit to the traditional ruler, the Angwon Akulu of Ikulu Chiefdom, on the death of Yohana Kuka. This is contained in a statement by the Vice President's spokesperson, Stanley Wokocha, titled President Tinubu okays establishment of Federal University in Southern Kaduna. The Nigerian Police High Command has warned Nigerians, particularly land speculators, to desist from dragging the Inspector General of Police Kayode Tokum into civil matters. The police headquarters, through its spokesperson, ACP Muyiwa Adejobi, expressed their displeasure, noting with amusement recent allegations made against the IGP in connection with a land dispute involving one Miss Bilikesu Ishaku Aliyu and Yusufu family. The police headquarters stated that it frowns upon such actions and would consider taking legal steps against individuals involved in these unhealthy practices. A Kaduna-based activist and political commentator, Mahdi Shehu, has allegedly been arrested by the Department of State Services (DSS). Reports say Shehu was arrested over a fake video bordering on national security matter, which has gone viral. Shehu had reportedly shared an old video on social media and forcefully accused the Nigerian government of plans to site a French military base in the northwest. He had claimed through his lawyer Mohammed Abubakar that he was arrested for calling on President Bola Tinubu to probe former President Muhammadu Buhari and some of his top officials. But former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami, SAN, in a statement from his firm, signed by a lawyer A.A. Sharif, alleged that Shehu was arrested in Kaduna when he tried to take advantage of his wife, Aisha, for a sum of $500,000. The presidential candidate of the New Nigerian People's Party, NNPP, in the 2023 general elections, Senator Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, has denied entering into a power-sharing agreement with Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and Peter Obi of the Labour Party. Speaking in an interview, Kwankwaso described the rumors as unfounded and malicious, alleging that Atiku's camp had been meeting with clerics and regional leaders to propagate the claim. The former Kano State Governor noted that since leaving the PDP for the NNPP, he has found peace and a sense of relief from what he called the humiliation he and his supporters endured in the PDP. Rivers State Governor Sim Fubara has presented 1.188 trillion naira as budgetary estimate for the year 2025 to Victor Oko Jumbo-led State House of Assembly for consideration and approval. This figure is an increase from the 2024 budget of 800 billion naira presented in 2023 to the Assembly. Governor Fubara presented the 2025 appropriation bill shortly after delivering his address to the 5 lawmakers at the Assembly Auditorium of the Government House in Port Harcourt. Fubara stated that the 2025 budget, christened Budget of Inclusive Growth and Development, will be implemented to achieve sustainable economic growth, accelerate the development of the state while improving the living standards of all residents in the state. The Nigerian Navy is set to deploy armed fighter drones to intensify efforts against illegal oil bunkering and pipeline vandalism in the Niger Delta region. According to the Navy, these advanced drones will penetrate remote areas where illicit activities thrive, which conventional drones have struggled to access. The Chief of Naval Staff, Vice Admiral Emmanuel Ogala, disclosed this during the flag-off ceremony of the Operation Delta Sanity 2 at the Nigerian Navy ship Pathfinder Jetty in Port Harcourt on Monday. Ogala explained that Operation Delta Sanity 2 built upon the initial Operation Delta Sanity launched in January 2024 to curb economic sabotage. The National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, Kwara State Command, says 929 people were arrested for hard drugs-related offenses between January and December 2024 in the state. The State Commander, Fatima Purola, disclosed this during a news conference at the agency's headquarters in Ilorin, the state capital, noting that those arrested included 839 males and 90 females in the state within a year. She explained that the command conducted a series of activities to suppress the supply and demand for hard drugs, adding that 2,642,103 kilograms were seized within the year in review. A federal high court in Abuja has granted the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission EFCC's application to freeze 67 bank accounts domiciled in different banks over alleged 52.9 million naira fraud. Justice Emeka Nwite granted the application after the commissioner's lawyers Martha Babatunde moved an ex parte motion to the effect. The motion filed by Miracle Anameze sought an order empowering the executive chairman of the anti-graft agency, Ola Olukoyede, or any other officer of the commission, empowered by him to instruct the managing directors of the banks to stop all outward payments, operations, or transactions, including any bill of exchange in respect of the bank account, pending the conclusion of an investigation. The Olu of Ife, Oba Adewale Ogunwusi Ojaja II, says there is no reason, Nigeria should be a poor nation. The monarch, in a statement, also emphasized the untapped potential of cassava derivatives such as Sodito, starch, the ethanol industries worth billions of dollars globally but underutilized in Nigeria. The ONU commended the bold initiative to convert over 20,000 hectares of land into mechanized cassava plantations, describing it as a groundbreaking step towards redefining Nigeria's agricultural landscape. Reports say security have been tightened at the Nigeria-Niger public borders, especially within the Sokoto axis, following an alert on the activities of the terror group popularly called La Kurora. But officials of the Nigerian Immigration Service have said there was no cause for alarm. According to reports, the Nigerian Immigration Service, as well as other security agencies, had stepped up efforts to frustrate incursions of illegal migrants into the country as they closely monitor the borders. Also, the deployment of recently inaugurated President Bola Tinubu Technology Innovation Complex has provided an edge for the service to secure the country's land borders as it is fitted with sophisticated technology gadgets for surveillance, monitoring, and evaluation of happenings at all borders. The Nigerian Army's 34 Artillery Brigade, Obuze Owerri, Imo State, has celebrated its annual West African Social Activities, also called WASA, for 2024. The colorful event brought together dignitaries, soldiers, and community members, showcasing cultural diversity and Army's commitment to fostering peace and unity. Imo State correspondent Amarachi Ibe was there for Global Television.
The event showed cultural dance, a tug-of-war competition, the symbolic lighting of the fire, all aimed at fostering unity and strengthening bonds among soldiers and the host community.
God bless you. God bless you, the team.
Representing the governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, the Commissioner for Homeland Security and Vigilante, Modesto Sosakwe, commended the army for their great efforts in ensuring a peaceful Imo State. He also praised for the repose of the souls of fallen heroes who paid the ultimate price for the nation's peace.
On this note, I say a big thank you to the officers and soldiers of the brigade for their great efforts in ensuring a peaceful Imo State. As we go into the new year, I urge you all to redouble your efforts to ensure the state is free from all forms of criminality and illicit social vices. For our dearly departed personnel, may their souls rest in eternal peace.
The commander of the 34th Artillery Brigade, Brigadier General Usman Lawal, thanked his officers and soldiers for their dedication throughout 2024, highlighting the brigade's achievements during the year and their role in sustaining peace in the region.
Achievements of the brigade so far has led to the reduction of crime, particularly kidnappings, armed robbery and activities of the secessionist group. This has been achieved mostly through deterrence and threat protection in timely manner and by the neutralization of criminal elements. Additionally, the brigade has been able to dislodge the unknown IPOC ESN from their various strongholds.
In his remarks, the representative of the General Officer Commanding 82 Division Enugu, Brigadier General Olayinka Zubairu, spoke on the importance of civil-military relationship, urging criminal elements to lay down their weapons and embrace peace.
Civil-military relations have been very, very wonderful. We didn't used to have it so good in the past. As you can see, the Commissioner of Police was here, the Civil Defense representative, all other security agencies, all of them have been here. My advice, the message for them is to drop their weapons, to drop their criminal activities and join up to make the country a very peaceful and progressive nation.
The event also saw the recognition of outstanding officers and individuals for their exceptional contributions. From Owerri, Amarachi Ibe, reporting for Global TV News.
News coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja, where News returns. President Tinubu commends NNPCL over the reopening of Warri Refinery. We shall bring you details of that story as well as foreign and sports news right after the break. Please stay with us. Welcome back from the break. In business, Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPCL, says the 125,000 barrel per day Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company in Warri Delta State is now operational. This is coming barely a month after the commencement of operations at the 60,000 barrel per day old Port Harcourt Refinery. The NNPCL Group as Chief Executive Officer Meli Kyari made the announcement during a tour of the facility, as a video post showed Kyari addressing a tour team, which included the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, Farouk Ahmed. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has commended the reopening of the Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. The president president, in a statement issued in Abuja by the special advisor to the president on information and strategy, Bayo Onanuga, described the reopening of the refinery as another remarkable achievement in 2024 that has strengthened Nigerians' hope in his administration. According to the statement, the President again expressed his administration's determination to ramp up local refining capacity and make Nigeria a hub for downstream industrial activities in Africa, with the Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company going into operation after several years of inactivity. The President noted with confidence that with the 125,000 barrels per day Warri refinery now operating at 60% capacity, his administration's comprehensive plan to ensure energy efficiency and security is entirely on course. The chairman of the Presidential Committee on Fiscal and Tax Reforms, Taiwo Oyedele, says the federal government's proposed tax reforms are designed to ease the burden on low-income earners. In an interview posted on his X platform handle, he said the current tax system introduced in 2011 has become regressive due to the high inflation and a lack of review, pushing many low-income earners into higher tax brackets. This, according to Oyedele, means that individuals earning as little as 400,000 a month pay the same top marginal income tax rate as those earning 20 million naira per month. Currency outside banks hit a new high of 4.65 trillion naira in November 2024, representing 95.4% of the total currency in circulation as Nigerians grappled with persistent cash scarcity despite efforts by the Central Bank of Nigeria to ease the situation. Data from the CBN showed a significant increase in cash held outside the banking system, up by 364.38 billion naira, or 8.5% from 4.29 trillion naira in October. Total currency in circulation also climbed to 4.88 trillion naira, reflecting a move-on-move rise of 328.91 billion naira, or 7.2%. The Federal Ministry of Finance has disclosed that the government of Saudi Arabia is exploring the possibility of investing in Nigeria's infrastructure sector. This is coming after a high-level Nigerian delegation visited the oil-rich Gulf nation. This is contained in a statement by the spokesman of the ministry, Mohammed Manga, in Abuja. The statement says the delegation, led by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, was said to have engaged key Saudi ministers and institutions in bilateral talks during the visit. The delegation held strategic talks with the Saudi Development Fund to explore potential areas of collaboration aimed at boosting infrastructure and economic development in Nigeria. Meanwhile, the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, says the economic diplomacy carried out by President Bola Tinubu around the world is generating the desired results. Speaking at a meeting with President Tinubu in Lagos, Edun noted the president had embarked on fruitful economic diplomacy on all the continents: Brazil in South America, China and India in Asia, as well as Germany and France in Europe and elsewhere. He said, as a follow-up on economic diplomacy, Tinubu had led a delegation to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia recently to ensure the success of the developing relationship between him and Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince. On the foreign scene, tributes have been pouring in for Jimmy Carter, the former U.S. President and Nobel Prize laureate, who rose from a humble beginnings in the rural state of Georgia to lead the nation and died aged 100. Qatar had been in hospice care since mid-February 2023 at his home in Plains, Georgia, the same small town where he was born and once ran a peanut farm before becoming governor and running for the White House. Qatar was the longest living or lived a U.S. president, an outcome that seemed unlikely when the Southern Democrat revealed in 2015 that he had brain cancer. United States President Joe Biden has declared January 9 a National Day of Mourning for Jimmy Carter. President Biden said this in a White House proclamation, calling on Americans to visit their places of worship to pay homage to the late U.S. leader. He also invited the people of the world who share in the grief to join the solemn observance. The United States has announced a $2.5 billion security assistance package for Ukraine as Washington races to provide aid to Kiev before President-elect Donald Trump takes over. Trump's November election victory has cast doubt on the future of American support for Ukraine, providing a limited window for billions of dollars in already authorized assistance to be disbursed before he is sworn in next month. This aid includes a $1.25 billion military drain-down package, which allows the Pentagon to take from U.S. stocks and send them quickly to the battlefield. Kenyan police have forcibly detained dozens of demonstrators and a senator AFP witnessed firing tear gas into small peaceful rallies protesting recent alleged abductions that have enraged the country. Security forces in the East African nation have been accused of carrying out dozens of illegal detentions since youth-led anti-government demonstrations in June-July. The latest disappearance have primarily involved young people who have criticized President William Ruto online, with rights groups dismissing police denials of involvement and calling for action. Scores of protesters rallied in the capital Nairobi on Monday, as some brandishing images of those who had disappeared, calling for their release and an end to the alleged abductions. Azerbaijan says Moscow promised to punish those responsible for the downing of an Azerbaijan airline plane that Baku says was shot at by Russian air defenses. The Azal Embraer 190 jet crash-landed in Kazakhstan on December 25th, killing 38 out of the 67 people on board. Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev has demanded that Moscow accept responsibility for mistakenly shooting the plane as it tried to make a scheduled landing at a Grozny airport in South Russia. Russia has not confirmed that one of its air defense missiles hit the plane, though President Vladimir Putin said that the systems were active at the time and that he was sorry the incident took place in Russian airspace. Let's jump into the exciting world of sports. The Confederation of African Football (CAF) has fined Libya $50,000 and mandated that the country plays 2 matches behind closed doors following incidents of misconduct by supporters and officials during their 2025 African Cup of Nations AFCON qualifier against Benin Republic on November 18 in Benghazi. This sanction follows a series of controversies surrounding Libya, including a highly publicized incident in October where Nigeria's Super Eagles faced deliberate mistreatment ahead of an AFCON qualifier. Libya diverted the Nigerian team's aircraft to an unsafe airport, causing significant delays and forcing CAF to award Nigeria 3 points after the match was cancelled. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola has reportedly set his sight on Nigerian and Nottingham Forest defender Ola Aina as a potential replacement for veteran right back Kyle Walker. Walker has faced heavy criticism this season for inconsistent performances, which have been linked to Man City's underwhelming start to the 2024-2025 campaign. According to report, Aina has emerged as a top candidate for the role, with Man City viewing him as a long-term solution. However, Guardiola's side faces stiff competition as Aina's impressive display have caught the attention of several top clubs, including Turkish giant Galatasaray, who are also monitoring his progress. And taking to Old Trafford, manager Ruben Amorim believes Manchester United are on the right path despite current challenges, declaring, "I have seen enough to recognize that we have many of the ingredients we need for success." Amorim's remarks penned before United's clash with Wolves resonate powerfully as the club gears up for their final game of 2024. In the latest United review, Amorim addresses fans with a candid reflection on the progress and the hurdles ahead. Red Devils lost to Newcastle last night. And that's how we quite a wrap on the Global AM News. I am Anthony Momodu. Good morning.
right, thank you everyone for staying with us here on Global Morning. It turns out again, like I mentioned at the top of the program today, that is the last day of 2024. It's a matter of hours now before it becomes another year altogether. But while we wait for that to happen, we're looking at some of the big events, many of them pivotal, that have shaped 2024 so far. I mean, events, decisions, and policy pronouncements that have become, if you like, some of the timeline, right, that has led to where we are today as a nation. 2024, no doubt, has been very eventful for Nigeria across sectors and in different aspects of our national life. And government has always been the spotlight in this regard, because you need government to pilot the affairs of citizens, especially in a country like Nigeria, where you have, as we are told, that the numbers are doing over 200 million. So the last 365 days, how have they been for us, from one sector to another, from one industry to another? How have policies shaping, or if you like, redefined the way we live as people? Are there things that we should have done differently or better in 2024, and what lessons, very vital lessons, can we take from these experiences as a government and as citizens into 2025? I want to look at some of these issues this morning. First guest is Rotarian Princess Halima Joboro. She is a journalist, public affairs analyst, and a gender activist, here to help us find sense in this conversation this morning. It's a pleasure to have you on the program.
I'm glad to be here. Good morning, viewers.
I know you're one of the super brilliant women in this country who follow politics and the working of governments very passionately, and you jumped on this conversation being the last day of the year to also look at some of these issues. But let's begin with what you might regard or assess as one of the very key events in 2024 in Nigeria.
There's so many events that shaped 2024. Among them were the bad governance protests held on August 6th. I refer to that as one of the very important events because citizens were activated, citizens were involved, citizens were outspoken, citizens were mobilized, and citizens came out on the street to say, wow, these governments need to sit up and serve us. You see, in democracy, office of the citizen is very great. No matter how we look at it in Nigeria. Democracy started before Nigeria started democracy. So, office of the citizen shapes opinion, shapes what the deliverables should be by carrying them along. Once citizens are feeling upset, are not happy, are feeling that their positions are compromised in the governance of their affairs, I think it's there.
You see, that process you mentioned now became very controversial. The End-Bad Governance protest was being run for 10 days. There are people who say, well, that protest